about to start. Turn off your cell phones. Everything. If you have to make a phone call, step outside.
I would like to call this meeting to order. Today is Thursday, April the 24th, 7 p.m. Our invocation tonight will be by Mr. Hyman.
Thank you, everybody. Bow their heads. Thank you, Lord, for all the blessings you've given this community in the past years. Thank you for the citizens we have here and the folks who are willing to be in our city council and our mayor to help guide our city. Again, thank you for the water we have. Thank you for the food we have. Again, thank you for our families and our friends. And thank you for, again, everything that you provided us in this world. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Now, we have established a quorum, Councilman Nieto, Councilman Guerrero, Councilman Rodriguez. If everyone will please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and the pledge of
the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one indivisible.
At this time, I'd like to welcome any citizens' comments.
I have a question, Mayor. Are we allowed to comment after, before we take a vote on an action item? There was no sign-up sheet.
Yes, sir.
Okay, then I'll wait for that. Thank you.
There's no other city comments, then we're going to start with old business, consideration and action to approve the minutes for our meeting of April the 10th.
Mayor, I move to approve the minutes from the council meeting on April the 10th, 2014.
Okay, I have a motion by Councilman Guerrero. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Councilman Rodriguez. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries 3-0. Now I'm going to do some moving around under presentation and discussion. First, I'd like to move up Teacher Appreciation Week proclamation. Councilman Rodriguez?
Yes, first of all, I'd like to take a moment to offer a word of gratitude for all of our teachers. Despite having a week dedicated to you, you remain in an underappreciated position. You constantly go above and beyond to take care of, shape, and foster the growth of our youth of our nation. I applaud y'all for all that y'all do and for all that y'all accomplished with our children to sculpt them, and thank y'all. Thank y'all for all that y'all do.
I know Teacher Appreciation Week is not until May 5th, but I think it's the perfect week to have this, especially after this busy week that you guys had to start that. So thank you for everything you do for the youth of Floresville.
And if I could get all the teachers that are in the audience to please stand and come over to the front so we can be here. Acknowledge them.
proclamation for Teacher Appreciation Week. Whereas teachers open children's minds to the magic of ideas, knowledge, and dreams, and whereas teachers keep American democracy alive from laying the foundation for good citizenship, and whereas teachers fill many roles as listeners, explorers, role models, motivators, and mentors, and whereas a strong, effective system of free public school education for all children and youth is essential to our democratic system of government, and whereas the United States has made considerable progress in the social, technological, and scientific fields due to our system of free and universal public education, and whereas much of this progress can be attributed to the qualified and dedicated teachers entrusted with the educational development of our children to their full potential, and whereas teachers should be accorded high public esteem, reflecting the value the community places on public education, and whereas PTAs on every level nationwide are keenly aware of the importance and impact of teachers on children, and whereas it is appropriate that teachers be recognized for this dedication and commitment to educating their students, and whereas teachers continue to influence as long after our school days are only memories. Now, therefore, it be resolved that Floresville City Council does hereby proclaim May 5th through 9th, 2014 as Teacher Appreciation Week for the City of Floresville, and urge all citizens to pay tribute to all public school teachers this 24th day of April 2014. Thank you.
Okay, y'all just stay there for just a minute. Okay, I'm going to jump over again for consideration and action to approve the Teacher Appreciation Week proclamation. May I have a motion?
I'll make the motion to approve the Teacher Appreciation Week proclamation.
Okay, can I get a second?
I'll second.
Only one of you can say.
I'll second.
Councilman Guerrero. Okay, I have a motion by Councilman Rodriguez, second by Councilman Guerrero. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries 3-0. Now I would like for everyone in the audience to please stand for them again. Okay, do our officers want to be moved up to the top also? PD? Y'all want to be moved up to the top too? Okay, as long as y'all don't give me a ticket. Okay, I'm going to move up item 2J for Police Week proclamation. Councilman Rodriguez?
Says in recognition of Police Week, a big resounding thank you to all of our law enforcement officers. As cliche as it may seem, you do put yourself in danger every day. You put on that uniform and risk your lives constantly for the lives of our citizens. We recognize your public service. Thank you for all that y'all do, and may the Lord bless y'all and protect y'all all the time.
Want to come on up, guys?
Proclamation for the Police Week, whereas the Congress and President of the United States have designated May 15th as Peace Officers Memorial Day and the week in which May 15th falls as National Police Week. And whereas the members of the Floresville Police Department, Wilson County Sheriff's Office, Texas Department of Public Safety, and all law enforcement play an essential role in safeguarding the rights and freedoms of both the citizens of and visitors to Floresville. And whereas it is important that all citizens know and understand the duties, responsibilities, hazards, and sacrifices of their law enforcement agency, and that members of the Floresville Police Department, Wilson County Sheriff's Office, Texas Department of Public Safety, and all law enforcement recognize their duty to serve the people by safeguarding life and property, by protecting against violence and disorder, and by preventing oppression and deception against the weak and the innocent. And whereas the men and women of the Floresville Police Department, Wilson County Sheriff's Office, Texas Department of Public Safety, and all law enforcement unceasingly provide a vital public service. Therefore, I, Diana Garza, Mayor of the City of Floresville, call upon all citizens of Floresville and all patriotic civic and educational organizations to observe the week of May 15th as Police Week, so that all of our people may join in commemorating law enforcement officers past and present, who by their faithful and loyal devotion to their responsibilities have rendered a dedicated service to their communities, and in so doing have established for themselves an inevitable and enduring reputation for preserving the rights and security of all citizens. I further call upon all citizens of Floresville to observe Thursday, May 15th, as Peace Officers Memorial Day in honor of those law enforcement officers who, through their courageous deeds, have made the ultimate sacrifice in service in their community or have become disabled in the performance of duty, and let us recognize and pay respect to the survivors of our fallen heroes. In witness, therefore, I hereunto set my hand and cause the seal of the city of Floresville to be affixed this 24th day of April, 2014. Thank you.
Now I'm going to jump over again to item 3D, consideration and action to approve the Police Week proclamation. 3C. Okay, can I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the Police Week proclamation.
Okay, may I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilman Rodriguez, second by Councilman Nieto. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries 3-0. Is there anyone else that's on the agenda that would like to be moved up before I continue? Then we're going to go on then to item 2A, citywide cleanup that was held Saturday, April the 19th.
Mayor and City Council, I just want to say that Saturday, the 19th, it was Easter weekend, but we had staff to come out. The mayor herself, you'll see in a few minutes, she was dressed accordingly, and the interim secretary and myself, we went around to do some things as you know. We had a bulk wide pickup. Republic came out to give us additional one for our Saturday dome. We worked from 8 until 12. I think the pictures are up for themselves. This is over there in the center. As we closed before we got started, we actually were able to have 12 staff, myself, the mayor, and the interim secretary to come out and to make some cleanup. We've had several different complaints around town, some vacant houses, and so we were able to address those. That house is next to Montes, and somebody else I know. There was a stench. It isn't vacant, and so it did offer a public safety issue. So we were able, that's what it looked like before. As you see, there was a lot of debris outside, and that's what we took away. everything was there, and that's what it looks like. We were able to, and the public's picking up the garbage in reference to that. So we were really happy we were able to move forward with that property to clean up. We still have to go back and visit and do some additional work, but we're hoping that we can continue this program. I think the next time we have is somewhere around July 12th, but we'll have another spring cleanup. But we're hoping to do more volunteers and to get some people who need some community service. The mayor and I already have 4 hours in, so if I ever need it, I can use it. Desert Republic, the Republic was there. They're going to help us and actually offer some volunteers the next time they come out. They have some people who like to volunteer to come help. Just clean up our community as we're trying to start our code enforcement program. So we're hoping that we can get out, roll up our sleeves, and Mayor, you did look quite lovely in that vest. They had several roll-offs there. They were able to fill up. We had some, as you see there were a couple of set-outs that we had. So we went around citywide as well as individual houses to pick up. We had people to call in. There were some brush issues. So we had people to call in and to take care of it. As you can see, there was some brush there citywide. We were able to clean up and use all of our equipment and crews. And they went around and actually dumped it and burned some and then came back. So we're really happy in reference to be able to do the complete cleanup, and I wanted to give a report on that. As I told somebody, it's your tax dollars at work, so we're really proud of that work that we were able to accomplish. Do you all have any questions?
Will there be another citywide cleanup held this year?
Yes, we plan on having 2 more additional bulk pickup in July.
July 12th.
July
And then
12th?
the week before Peanut Festival, October 4th.
And October 4th. July 12th, and we're going to actually put that on our website as well, those dates. So we're hoping that we can get more volunteers and churches to do that. And remember, you can bank those community service hours. Okay, end of my report.
Mr. Turner, I'd like to add to that, if I may, please. I know we have a rep here from Republic, Mr. Johnson. We really appreciate what y'all did during this, all those roll-offs. I know that they were full to the top.
We appreciate you to go to Terry Gala, who is your representative.
And I will send him a thank
And your
you.
city manager.
And then also the county who allowed us to collect tires and put them in their yard. We want to give us some of that.
Yeah, it was a partnership between the county, the public, staff, and we had a church to come and volunteer, but they're gonna give us an IOU because of the Holy Weekend for them, so they couldn't participate as they would want to, but they said definitely call them for the next one. And believe me, the mayor definitely will call, she won't forget.
No. And I want to tell the exciting part of our adventure.
Well, one property had a little surprise when we went to go remove some of the branches. It's a vacant property next door to Mr. Smith's establishment. And some bees came out and actually stung a couple of our workers. They can run really fast when bees are around. However, Monica, for some reason, they didn't mess with her. They were swarming around her head and didn't sting. Something about they don't sting honorary people, I don't know, but that's what they tell me. But Monica did not receive anything. But we were able to administer first aid treatment, but we will have to come back and visit that property once it's been properly exterminated.
And you didn't know Felipe? Poor Felipe. We picked him up, he was coming out of Mata with two, what is it, from the county?
Yeah, they had two community service workers.
Right. So he wanted to know what we were doing at that house next to Mata, and I said, well, come on over and help us. So he did. All three of us joined us. And when he was over there at that house, I have to tell you, it was funny. Not really funny, but it was funny. Man, he took off running. He ran all around the ball, not the ball, the John's. Ended up over here at the ice cream shop, and then he was way over here. They had to
They had to get
go.
their van to go catch him. He was
They had to go
running.
catch him because he was just running.
So we'll come back and visit. He did say he'd come back and help
And he
us.
said he's gonna come back and help us and bring more volunteers, so we appreciate it.
We were excited. And it was a neighborhood cleanup as well, because some other subdivisions were able to clean up and do some things. So it's slow in progress, but we're hoping that we can see and make a dent. And definitely all those branches were picked up.
Okay, you can stay right there. Will be 2B, workshop dates for the planning and zoning.
Yes, I just needed to serve as a reminder that we are having a planning and zoning workshop scheduled for April 30th at 6:30 here. The purpose of that meeting is our 3-year annexation that we need to look at and start developing that, as well as the Riverview subdivision that's come back to life. And we're looking at doing a development agreement. So that will be on the agenda for a workshop moving forward. It will be a joint meeting between P&Z and yourself. We will post it as such, and we'll be having it here at City Hall. So I wanted to remind you of that date. The other reminder I'd like to do is Phelps rate structure. They requested a meeting, and we have scheduled one for Wednesday, May 14th at 6:30, again here at City Hall. We just wanted to remind you of that so that you can mark your calendars accordingly. Do you have any questions about this tonight? The meeting will also be posted as well.
Okay, then now we're going to go on to item 2C, the financial update, February 2014 revenue and expense, fund balances, sales tax report to be given by county or interim comptroller.
Yes. What you have behind item 2C is the financial report that our previous comptroller prepared for you, and Connie can give you an overview of that report. Connie?
Madam Mayor, Councilman, I request permission to address the council. Good evening. I am currently the interim comptroller of the city of Lawrenceville, and I'm here to present the February 2014 budget report. This report was not prepared by me. It was prepared by the prior comptroller. In the memo, there's 3 schedules. They are included, and they have numbers. They have budget numbers that I checked and I verified and made sure that they were correct. The city continues to enforce the budget amounts to where we have 0 tolerance over overages and emergency spending. If you wish, I can go over those schedules if you have any questions in regards to that. Thank you for your attention, and if you have any questions, I can go ahead and answer. And let me go ahead and give you a little help to see if there's some questions that will pop up. On the first schedule that is included on the memo, it's the general fund budget, and it's the revenue column against the actual expenditures or current expenditures. And as you can see on the total revenue, we have collected already 43% of what was estimated to be collected through the year. Expenses have been up to date 36%, and as you can see, we have less expenditures than we have revenue coming in. That is going to allow us to lower the deficit that is currently on general fund. Sewer and water fund also schedule is included on the memo, and it has the column for the budget and the year to date. And revenues were estimated to be $2,065,571. We have collected $759,821, and that represents 37% of the total estimated revenues collected. The expenditures were estimated to be also $2,065,000. We have expended year to date $550,000. Which represents 26% of the budgeted amount. Also, in these funds, we are doing very good as long as we stay under the estimated revenue. The city is going on the right track. On the debt service fund, also we have estimated to obtain revenue $491,000. We have collected most of it, so 82% of the estimated revenues have been collected. On the expenditures, we have expended 21%. So that's also a good statement for us to represent the city on the track that we're trying to achieve. Is there any questions on these sketches? Okay, we also have Pat here, which is the auditor that conducted the audit for the city. Okay, and I just want to let you know that I ended my report. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Alvarado.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, members of council. I am now right here. Now, down this, I can turn my pages here. May I introduce you? Oh, of course, please. Okay. Now we're going to have our our presentation of the 2012-2013 audit by Pat Wagner from the Audit Committee. Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate it. Our firm audited the financial statements of the city of Floresville for the year ended September 30th of 2013. And I'm pleased to report that we issued a clean or unmodified report on the financial statements of the city. And if you've got your, either the booklet or I'm going to give you the actual page numbers. You all don't use PDF files up here, do you? So that opinion is on page 1 of the financial report. Following our opinion is the management discussion and analysis that begins on page 3. That is just that, management discussion of the 50 or so pages that follow. It's a very good executive summary that was written by Henrietta and by Connie. And I suggest that if you don't have time to look at every number on the next 50 pages, this is a very good summary in just a few pages. I'm not going to go into any significant detail on the financial statements themselves, but I'd like to point out a couple of items anyway. As you all know, we had discussed this report in some detail with the audit committee, so we don't see any purpose in really going into that level of detail. But if you have questions, please let me know any time. If you would turn please to page 14. This shows the balance sheet of the funds of the city. It shows assets in total for the city of $1,618,000. But if I could ask you to focus on the general fund's assets are $390,387. The liabilities of the city as a whole on that right column total $546,000. However, the general fund's liabilities were $460,665. So assets were less than liabilities of $70,278. So technically, we're still in an insolvent position, but I want to point out to you that the position that you were in last year in terms of deficit fund balance was over $244,000. By your efforts in the budget and expenditures, you were able to reduce that deficit to $70,278. And we'll see in a minute that you actually outperformed what you thought you were going to do in that budget process. The next page I'd like to talk about is page 16. These are the same funds of the city, but it shows the income statement. So we see that we had revenue citywide at $4.6 million. General funds revenue was $3.3 million. The expenditures were citywide $3.9 million. General fund spent $3.4 million. Now we had a transfer in from two different funds. We had a transfer in to general fund from refuse, and we had it for $200,000. And we had a transfer in from the street maintenance tax of $76,000. So after transfers, you actually decreased your deficit in general fund balance by $174,382. So that is a very positive direction to be in, and I congratulate the efforts of city staff in able to accomplish that and your leadership. The next page I'd like you to look at is page 19. We just talked about the governmental funds. We have a whole other set of funds that we call enterprise funds. These are intended to turn a profit for the city. And they include waterworks and sewer. They include the refuse fund and the cemetery fund. So just in total, if you look at the third number up from the bottom on the right, those three funds were able to increase our net income, if you will, of $224,785. So they did well. A large part of that, I think, is implementing the rate plan that y'all had and getting the rates in the system corrected as well. There are a series of additional financial statements, but I'd like to direct you, please, to the footnotes on page 35. Because of the tight budget, we have capital assets, so the city showed no additions. And if you flip the page, capital asset, there were no capital asset additions for the enterprise funds as well. So that's part of the austerity move. If I could ask you to turn to page 40 of the footnotes, please. This schedule shows you your fund balance. Now, a fund balance is your net worth, so it's your assets minus your liabilities. And this schedule, I think, is interesting because while you had a total fund balance for the city of $1,072,000, you see a lot of that is earmarked for debt service, for construction, for occupancy tax, and that kind of thing. So while we're a positive position in total, a lot of that is earmarked and can't be spent for day-to-day type operations. So I thought you'd find that a little interesting. The next schedule I'd like to look at is on page 44. What this is, your general fund budget to actual. And as I mentioned earlier, you really outperformed your final amended budget last year. You have budgeted another $285,000 deficit trying to get this turnaround happening. Instead, you reduced that deficit by $174,000. So that turnaround positive was about $460,000 from budget. As part of the audit, we're also required to take a look at internal controls of the city and compliance with laws and regulations. As you recall, last year we had a pretty significant list of internal control issues and a couple of compliance issues. I'm pleased to report that those issues, while there are still some out there, they're significantly reduced. City staff was able to implement corrective action on most of these. These are addressed back on page 55. The first finding that we have this year, it's a technical violation of law. We still have a fund balance deficit. Enough said, we talked about that. The next significant deficiency that we would like staff to address this year is utilizing the payroll module in your ENCODE system so that it better tracks compensated absences. Now, Connie has mentioned in the audit committee meeting that this has been implemented. So on your employees' pay stubs, they're now able to see what they're accumulating, vacation, sick, that kind of thing. So that's a very big accomplishment, and glad that you did that. Another item that we came up with this year is the employee handbook is often contradictory, especially in the area of what we pay when people come. It'll say that we will pay sick in one area, and in another area it says we will not pay sick, unused sick time. So Connie and the city manager have committed to undertake rewriting that and bringing that to you all for more consistency. Plus, as Henrietta indicated, there have been changes in federal law, so those need to be addressed. Municipal court, we had last year suggested that their server be integrated within the city server so that we have the same controls. That's probably not practical to do. It's something that we suggest you keep on your radar, but at the time now, it's probably not a financial practical operation. Municipal court does not take cash, so that kind of mitigates a lot of the internal control issues that we would otherwise have. I'd like to briefly touch on last year's findings, and this will again be very brief. We have the deficit and fund balance. Utility rates were not being billed out in the system the same as the ordinance, but that has now been fixed, and you are billing your utility rates in accordance with the ordinance. We've already talked about payroll matters. We've already talked about municipal court. And I'm pleased to report that one finding we had last year was that the city was not making dividend cash deposits. A significant amount of cash were accumulating in bulk.
practical the city is making daily deposits. And that was a big step in the right direction. That one really, so. That was my presentation. Do y'all have any comments or questions?
I personally think that it's the best use we could have done.
It is definitely a win. It doesn't look
We worked
anything.
very hard, the staff has worked real hard, doing everything we could to get it to where it is now.
Absolutely.
Thank you for your presentation.
Mayor, do you want me to stay around for the actual approval and the action agenda?
I'll jump to that.
Oh, okay. Thank you all. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to skip to new business A, consideration and action to approve the 2012-2013 audit as presented. May I have a motion?
I think you make a motion and then a second, and then I can speak. Correct?
I want to hear him speak, so No, but like the mayor said, I mean, the city staff and previous council, Mr. Miller, who's here, of course, Martin Morones, Eric Rodriguez, and Johnny Guerrero, Ms. Sherry Castillo, and the mayor, and, Andy Johnson, Senator, of course. You guys did a great job, of turning this budget around and getting in the right direction, so that's our job, to make sure that we keep heading in that direction, and get out of that red, that $70,000. And I think with the sales tax amount that we're getting here in Boardville, collecting all of our other property taxes on time, that we can, head in the right direction with the help of Ms. Turner and her staff, and moving this forward. So that being said, I'd like to approve the 2012-2013 audit.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion by Councilman Nieto, second by Councilman Guerrero. All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries 3-0. And again, thank you very much for questioning.
Now, may I speak now? Okay. Mayor Gatsa, City Council, and citizens of Floresville, just wanted to take a couple of minutes to thank you for your service and the work that you've done on turning the city around. Working with you individually was an honor, and I'm glad that Ms. Wagner presented what she did today. And the only words of advice that I can offer to the council as a citizen of Floresville is to allow your city manager to do her job. You support her. She made a couple of good comments during the audit committee meeting that the hard work's been done. And now it's her job to run with it and move our city forward, which is what our intentions were as a council and manager during my tenure, but we got distracted. And my advice to you is don't allow yourself to be distracted by loud voices whose only motive is to hurt the city. Because we did improve $200,000 or almost $200,000 that could have been used to pave our streets. That could have been used to improve our infrastructure instead of trying to recover legal costs and professional fees that weren't needed. Are they procedural issues that need to be addressed? Still today. And it's like that with cities everywhere. And it'll continue this year, it'll continue next year, it'll continue every year. Because that's what we do as citizens of our community. We get elected to lead the city. We appoint a city manager to move the city forward, but forward, not backwards. So I agree with Councilman Nieto to some extent on the appreciation of council members and city staff. Laura Fagans was outstanding as a controller. This audit and the improvements were a lot to do with her and her hard work. So I want to make sure that that's on record, that she gets, kudos for what she did. But there's still negativity out in our community that we need to avoid and we need to move our city forward positively. Because our city is beautiful, it's great, it's outstanding in the position that I hold now. I travel the state looking at communities, and ours is top rated, always has been, always will be, and always can be. Don't be distracted by the people that aren't here today. Because I don't see the distractions that we had during my tenure here today. None of them. So again, I appreciate the service that the citizens who value our community and want the best for our community to provide. And you up there are part of it. So thank you again.
Thank you. And we can only get better if we all work together with the same goals in mind. So please remember that, okay? And our doors, again, I'll tell you, are never closed for anybody. Any questions you have, you can always come in and ask, okay? Or I think all of y'all know where to find me. Okay. Now we're going to go on to item 2E. We're going to get an update on the USDA application that Mr. Heimer.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. I'm Larry Heimer. I'm with Geary Engineers in San Antonio. I have with me tonight also William Cossey, who's a professional engineer who's also working with Andrew on the sewer system mapping and modeling project. They'll give an update in a few minutes on that. But I guess as far as the USDA application, I wanted to kind of give you a quick overview of the process. Y'all may be familiar with it, but basically it's about a 10-step process that we're going through, and right now we're going into step 2. Step 1 was a pre-application where the city submitted information about the city and its needs and its rate structures and things like that. And now we're going to step 2, which is the part where the project is identified, the scope of the work and cost estimates are prepared for that project. And the project will include the expansion of your wastewater plant to the next level. Right now you're permitted to 900,000 gallons per day. And so we'll be upgrading that plant and increasing its size to another level, above 1 million gallons per day, obviously. But that will be determined in this step we're going into right now, which is called the PER, or Preliminary Engineering Report phase. We'll be working over the next 3-4 months with Andrew and city staff related to the plant operation and what type of improvements and what type of processes that we want to go to with this next expansion. Another part of this PER will be the improvements and expansion related to 2 major lift stations in the city. One is the lift station at Highway 97, which is probably your largest lift station in the city, and then the lift station at Guajarito Creek at 181. Basically, lift stations function, they have a wet well, and gravity flows into a wet well, and then the pumps in that wet well pump the flow over the hill up to the next gravity line, which then gravity flows to your plant. So this PER and this project that we're going to be scoping out over the next 3 or 4 months will include your wastewater plant expansion and then these 2 lift station improvements. Right now, these lift stations don't meet current standards. They've been there for a long time, and they do need to have major improvements done to them. At this point in time, the approximate cost of all this is probably in the $3.5 to $4 million range as far as construction cost. But that has not been determined yet. We're going to be going through that process in this PER stage to really get our hands around the cost and the type of processes we want to do. And in this, we'll certainly be addressing things like controls, pump controls, notification systems, probably other types of state-of-the-art equipment that will help the plant operators to do a better job and help them with their monitoring of the equipment. But that's kind of where we are right now. And I said it's a total of about a 10-step process. This phase is going to probably take about 4 months, so by about the end of August, we'll be through this PER and environmental report phase. And then we'll go to step 3, which is kind of formal application phase, where we submit the actual project scope and cost to USDA. Then their state office reviews the information, and then they kind of respond to the city in another step that kind of delivers the conditions of what the loan will be or grant will be for your project. And then we'll go into kind of preparing the final plans of the project, and then kind of get a pre-loan closing phase where you will then, at that time, you will have final plans done, and you will be ready to go out and bid this project out. And again, all along the way through all these 10 steps, USDA is going to be kind of working hand in hand with the city through this process. So the process between right now and going to having plans completed, ready to go out to bid is probably about a 1-year process. So next year, about this time, we'll probably be at a point where we're going to be getting ready to bid out this project, and you'll have the information from USDA to make a decision what you want to do related to the terms of the loan or grant, whatever comes out of this process. Again, everything we're doing with the PER and the environmental report is information that can be used, whether you go through this USDA process or just go forward with some other method of expanding your plan. This document will submit an application to amend your permit in this process, and so we can make sure we understand what the TCEQ's requirements will be for your treatment standards, because we anticipate going from the 900,000 gallon per day permitting capacity up to above 1 million, that you're going to have to do other treatment, which is it's going to relate to disinfection and removal of certain types of other particles in the wastewater. But we will actually be submitting documents to TCEQ to find out and make sure that what new permit will require, so we'll know what that will be. So this PER is going to be helpful to the city no matter what direction you go, but right now we're doing it in accordance with the USDA process. After the USDA approves the scope and the city agrees with whatever the grant or loan is, then we would go to bidding and bid the project out. That's probably about a 2 or 3 month process going through the USDA process. And then after bids come in, then the exact amount of construction will be known, the cost of construction will be known, and that will kind of allow USDA and the city to finalize the grant/loan document. And then so once that is done, you're kind of down to step 9. At that point, you will then sign construction contracts and your contractor will go to work. This whole process is probably, from start to finish, is probably about a 3 to 3.5 year process. And that the construction will probably be about an 18 to 24 month process. So it's not something that's going to happen very quickly, but it's going to be a very controlled process we go through with USDA to get to a point where the city can decide what you're going to do with your next phase of plan expansion. We went through this fairly recently with Somerset, through almost the exact same process, and that process took about 3.5 years to go through from the start of where we are today to the final completion of the plan expansion. So it's something that does take time, but we would anticipate that if everything goes along and the city agrees to go forward with the loan or obtain the grant, the plant would be operational by the early part of 2017, which is probably in the February, March time frame of 2017. So it's a long ways out, but it takes that long to go through this process and also to build that kind of improvement in your plan. So it's not something that happens very quickly, so it'll be a good 3 to 4 years down the road. You have any questions that I can answer? Again, at this point in time, our scope right now, we've just been released to do the PER, and we'll be working very closely with Andrew and other city manager and other members of your staff to define what this next level of expansion will be for your plant, and then how we will improve your 2 lift stations.
Do you feel that by 2017 that we'll already reach capacity?
I don't think you'll reach capacity. You'll be well within that 75% threshold, though. I don't know, at this point in time, Andrew, I don't know how close you are to that.
Right now we're averaging about 60.5%.
Okay. Okay, so you're at about 60.5% of capacity. When you reach 75%, TCEQ requires that you go forward with design and planning for your plant expansion. So I think between now, unless something significant happens, and very well could, there's a lot of planned growth here in the city, you could be moving up a little quicker as far as reaching that threshold of 75%. But I don't think you're going to be at capacity by the time this new plant expansion is done. I think there's enough time. Back in about 20 years ago, the city had the permanent capacity was at 700,000 gallons per minute, or 690,000 gallons per day. We took a look at your existing plant and found a way to re-rate that plant to 900,000. But the reason we did that was because at that time you had reached your 75% threshold. And so that was 18 years ago. And so, you can tell there's been more growth here recently, but I think there's adequate time, and you should not have an issue related to your capacity of your plant being exceeded. I think the issues you're going to be dealing with are breakdowns maybe in equipment, like your lift stations, maybe having to replace pumps and maintenance, higher maintenance costs, because a lot of the equipment out at the wastewater plant that wasn't included in this more recent improvement we did, and also your lift stations are old, and so it'll be important to get those addressed as quickly as possible. It's not so much the capacity issue of your plant, it's just the equipment is wearing out, and you've got to do something quickly before you have some major problems.
Now, this is to address the current sewer plant